My name's Travis Ayla. I'm a warrior, father. I've been going to ELC now for about 2 years. When it comes to my journey, it really started growing up in a Mormon household. Growing up, my mom, she divorced several times and was always looking for a new father figure for me, and put me into a corner of feeling like anything that I wanted in life, anything I wanted to be, like I had to be the pinnacle or I was an outcast. The byproduct of leading a life like that forced me to seek that validation through accolades, achievements, accomplishments. So once I got out of high school, I joined the Marine Corps, excelled there, again, making it about me and always seeking that next achievement, that next accolade, that next title. But I still had that void. It never went away. After the Marine Corps, I was a police officer out in Annapolis, Maryland, and put me right back into a great environment of being able to be a leader and go pursue awards, accolades, Officer of the Year, Detective of the Year, things like that, because all I knew was what mattered to me. I was focused on who I was. I was involved in everything because I was the guy, right? And I wanted to be the guy. All these awards and accolades, I could call my shot around a tri-state area, but ultimately that came to a crash in about 2015. I was involved in a traffic accident. I was on my way home from the gym when I rear-ended another vehicle, and that collision sent me in the air, landing on that passenger vehicle. And I remember distinctly having to jump out of this vehicle with the driver's side door on the ground. So I'm standing on my driver's side door looking up in a smoking vehicle. The only way out is to reach up over me, lift this door, and climb out of the car. So I immediately go into what I am, right? First responder. But that was the most gut-wrenching moment in my life, to run up as a first responder to a vehicle that I had just impacted. I know I'm the only person there at the moment to have any impact on saving their lives, but I also know touching them can do them more harm. The best thing for me to do is to make the scene safe and clear for fire and rescue when they get there, to stabilize them and let the true experts do their best to save their lives. And that moment right there was, and still is, easily the most helpless moment of my life, being my whole career has been centered around service and saving lives and taking care of the community. And I am the one person that can't do a single thing. I had to watch both victims get life flighted out while I sat there completely unscratched. And fire, at about a midway point, came rushing over to the vehicle that I was in, and they're panicking, asking, who's in this vehicle? We got to find the driver of this vehicle. To which I raised my hand up. I was driving that vehicle. They're looking at me in complete disbelief, like there's no way. There's zero chance you survived this accident. Who was in the car? You were the first responder. You're the first person on scene. We know that, but who was in the car? It's like, I was driving the car. And they pause and they look at me, and I'll never forget this moment. One of them looks at me and is like, man, you got a guardian angel. There's no chance that you should be alive, much less just standing here telling us about this accident. And keep in mind, I was as far from God as possible at this moment. And they life flighted these victims out, and they passed away at the hospital. And I walked away from an accident completely unharmed, where 3 people lost their lives. And I spent the next year of my life questioning everything. What was my purpose? Why am I here? Why me? Why not them? I succumbed myself to all the media, all the comments in social media, the newspapers, the news articles. I was all over social media as a murderer, as a bad cop, you name it. And I forced myself to read and watch all of that. I went to a very deep and dark place, but something that kept ringing through over that year was about a half a dozen people over that timeline told me, man, God's got plans for you. You had angels watching over you. All these comments about purpose and God. And it really made me reevaluate who I was and start focusing on whose I was. The only thing that got me through that year, a man named Scott Unkelbach. For some reason, Scott saw something in me and started to pour into me. And pour into me in a way that I hadn't seen my whole life. I saw somebody that cared enough about me to mentor me and talk to me about life, not the business, not the accolades. I was doing okay. I was making a name for myself in that, but he didn't care. It was more about who I was. It planted a seed then. That got reinforced. A few months later, I was at an event in Baltimore where Keith Craft was a speaker. This man gets on this stage and starts talking about divine fingerprint and really touching on topics that were all question marks to me, were all voids, were all boxes that I haven't been able to check and haven't been able to understand through anybody else. I was dialed in that like this guy's got it figured out. Anything that this guy's speaking, like I've got to get a piece of it. I found out he was a pastor and I was just completely changed my perception of a relationship with God, of religion, because this image was as far as could be from what I grew up thinking the church and religion and God was about. That seed being planted throughout this year aftermath of the accident ultimately, I believe, saved my life. I decided to pack everything up in 2016, and I drove sight unseen to Frisco, Texas. I bet it all on a new life for me, a new life for my daughter, focusing and learning about whose I was versus who I was. Attending ELC was hard for me because I had such a fear of church, a fear of judgment, making sure I showed up after worship and left before the pray out because I didn't want anybody to see me coming in. I didn't want to see anybody see me leaving. The more I would plug into ELC, the more life I would live, the more full I felt, the more purpose-driven I found myself. I mean, it was literally like just plugging into an outlet. Ultimately gave my life to God and was baptized by Josh in Easter 2019. And there's really been no looking back since then. Doing everything I can in every area of my life to do things God's way versus the wrong way, as Pastor Josh would say. My business has flourished. My relationship with my daughter's flourished. She's attended ELC with me every Sunday since 2019. I made myself that commitment at that convention in Baltimore that I was going to plug in and follow all this man had to give when I listened to PK speak that first time. And a real good moment was walking into his house this January, 7 years to the date of meeting Pastor Keith. And here I am in his elite mastermind after going through his other masterminds. And I was nervous just driving up this day to this meeting. But when I walked into his house, I looked around the room and these were all people I was doing life with already. And I just, for the first time in my life, I felt at home, a family. So it took me long enough to find it, but they say you go through life either existing or living. And I believe that wholeheartedly. In business, like there's a way to do things and a way not, and there's templates for it. And as long as you apply the template, you see success. And really, life's no different way. Life is about following the template that's been left in front of us. That's the Bible. Pastor Josh talks about it all the time. You can either do life God's way, or you can do life the wrong way. And I've tried a lot of ways to live life, but when it comes to truly living life and having a purpose, there's only one way to live life. Whether that's for me, it's for the legacy I create, it's for my neighbor, any of my team, there's one way to do this, and that's God's way. And there's already a template in front of us. We just have to be faithful, fully submit, and follow.